or in India.
Okay.
Linda, do I need to hit the record button here, or you got it?
I already did it.
All right.
Okay, well, I'm John Cram. I currently live outside of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, home of the famous three-day battle that pretty well changed the history of the United States. I spent the first 50 years of my life associated with the military in one form or another. I was born in Colorado Springs, Colorado. My dad was a career Air Force officer. And so by the time I graduated from high school, I had gone to 13 different schools, and not because I was a discipline problem, but because we moved so often and they were always building new schools. As a youth, I lived in Colorado, Wyoming, Virginia, Texas, Alaska, Nebraska, back to Virginia, and Goose Bay, Labrador, all you Canadians.
All right.
We spent a wonderful year and a half accumulating 13 feet of snow a year. After I graduated from high school, I elected to go to the University of Oklahoma because that was as far away from my parents as I could get and still be reasonable. OU, of course, I'm an OU fan. And they're not doing too well this year, but that's okay. And when I was in school, I didn't do too well. So about the third year of my being a sophomore, the University of Oklahoma invited me to reconsider my educational goals. I still have the letter. And back, that was in 1970. And in 1970 in the United States, if you didn't have a student deferment, there was a job waiting for you. So on October 20th of 1970, I was inducted into the Army. Took all my training and wound up in Germany. I determined very quickly that being a private was not nearly as much fun as they had promised me. And so I went to officer candidate school in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where after 6 months I became a field artillery second lieutenant. That career took me to Germany, then back to Fort Sill for advanced training, and then to Fort Hood, Texas, where I decided to seek my fortune on the outside. I was a small business consultant in Fort Collins, Colorado. That didn't pan out as well as I thought, and so I went back on active duty as a full-time reservist, wound up teaching some ROTC at Westminster College in Fulton, Missouri, where most people don't know. That's where Winston Churchill gave his Iron Curtain speech. From there, I went to St. Louis, where I met my wife. And after that, my final assignment was in the Pentagon. Always an interesting assignment. I retired after 20 years of active federal service and then moved up to just north of Philadelphia, where my wife was assigned at the time. She is also full-time active military as a lawyer. And shortly thereafter, we went up to Worcester, Massachusetts, or as I like to call it, Worcester. Somewhere in there, and it was in St. Louis, I got my first decent bike. It was a Honda CBX, which is a slant straight line 6-cylinder.
Yeah.
With 6 carburetors. And I found out all about that when I didn't ride the bike for about a year and a half. Oh. And before I knew anything about gas conditioning. So all 6 carburetors clogged up and I had to have that fixed. I now take care of my bike gasoline. After that, we moved down to Washington, D.C., where she was also assigned to the Pentagon. I was retired then. And one weekend we came to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. We came here on the 2nd of July, 19. Now understand that the commemoration of the battlefield is the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of July every year. And it is the busiest time in Gettysburg of the whole year. And we came up looking for a hotel room in Gettysburg. That didn't pan out because they were all full, so we wound up staying 20 miles away. And after a day of looking around the battlefield, driving back to our hotel in Chambersburg, that's that away, by the way, we saw this little bitty sign that said winery this way. So we followed the sign, and because we like to do wineries, and in talking to the then owner, he happened to casually mention, I just put this place on the market. Now, we should have been suspicious when on the busiest Saturday of all of Gettysburg, we were the only two in the winery. Mm-hmm. But we went back to Washington, and we called him the next day and said, we'll take it. How hard can it be? We had grown the winery from 2,300 gallons production a year to about 30,000 gallons a year. And after 20 years, we're still having a good time. Of course, as you all know, I'm an Indian man. I'm on my second Indian, a dark horse. And because we have good crew, I'm able to go out on, not as long as Jerry there. And was it Roy and Judy that went with you? But I'm able to get away and get some decent rides in. I enjoy riding with this group. You guys are my friends. I think I am. And I find that almost all my friends are members of Rotary. I joined the local Rotary Club in 2005, mostly for business dealings, and quickly got involved in the polio eradication effort. And the reason I did that is because when I was 8 years old, I contracted polio. I had a minor case. Back then, you didn't have a choice about immunizations. You got it or you didn't go to school. Things have changed since then. But I got a minor case, and I was in the hospital for 6 weeks. Now I have a funny gait and one leg is shorter than the other. But I got involved in the polio eradication effort. Now, I think, did you send out that letter today, Linda? Linda?
What?
Did you send out that letter from Nancy Barbie today to everybody?
No, I'll send it out with the video message.
Okay. I met Nancy Barbie at the convention in New Orleans and kind of made a pest of myself until she said, okay, you can go. So I've been to India 3 times. And can you turn over control to me so I can show this? Are you doing that, Linda?
It's all yours.
Can you see that? Can you guys see that? Anybody?
No.
Should say toilets, tourism, and testimony.
Nope. You have to share twice, kind of. You share, then you have to hit share.
So I have to hit share?
Yep.
Okay. There's that.
It's asked you which thing to share, and you got to click it again.
Okay.
Oh, there's something coming.
Should say toilets, tourism, and testimony.
Yep.
Yep, we got it.
Okay, I think I gave this presentation once. Let me see if I can get it. Okay, the first place I went to this town down here, Vijayawada, and I went there at the invitation of a local Rotary Club because they wanted to do a global grant. I met my compatriot there at the Atlanta convention. He just walked up to me and said, you want to do a global grant? So I visited down there, and the global grant, they got the check yesterday, and so they'll start construction next week on some new toilets and hand washing facilities in 10 very poor schools. Let's see what else I can do. I gave this. You can see kind of the state of repair in some of these places. That's a toilet facility. It's always across the parking lot or the playground. That's a boys' toilet. This is the girls' toilet. You'll notice they don't use toilet paper there. They use hand washing or washing. And you'll notice all they have is this spigot right here. So they want to improve that. Boys' toilet, not too bad. The urinals. This is a hand washing facility. That's all they get. They want to upgrade it to something like this. So that was one thing. I visited one of the classrooms there. This is unusual because there's both boys and girls in the same classroom, although they're across the aisle from each other.
There's an odd-looking student there in the middle.
He was very odd. Okay, I would like to, never mind. Then I joined up with my compatriots a couple days later up in Delhi, and that's Nancy and company. Now, part of this whole thing that Nancy's putting together, and Linda's going to send out the invitation later today, is it's part tourism, part learning exercise, and then part national immunization. Part of the tourism, of course, is that edifice right there, Taj Mahal. She will be visiting that. I don't think she's going this time, but we went to Jaipur. This is very important, and they teach you this when you go to International Assembly, and I think Jerry can verify it. There are two kinds of snakes in the world, dead ones and cobras. And when I was in Jaipur, I met this gentleman who patted next to himself, indicating I should sit down next to him. I declined. This is Nancy's cohort, Colleen Bonadonna. She's actually down helping Nancy now recuperate from the hurricane. Then we went up to Chandigarh for our, well, let me back up a little. Part of being in Delhi is we go to the WHO headquarters, we go to many headquarters, so we can find out what they're doing to prevent, continue to prevent polio in India. And we went to Chandigarh for our immunization day. Previous years, I'd gone out to right in here, a little town called Dhanbad, big industrial area. This is what happens with all the money. UNICEF is involved, the CDC, the WHO, and the Government Alliance, and then Rotary. Rotary doesn't actually buy the vaccine. We advocate, we do our best to get people informed as to when the vaccination is, where it will be, social mobilization, and this is kind of the logistics of an NID in India for one day. Yeah, you can see that's a bunch of stuff. The whole country gets 2 days to get vaccinated, kids 5 and under. Some of the things that Rotary does is we purchase these very tasteful and stylish vests. So in case you don't know what these Americans are doing in town, we're the immunizers. This is our group. Many of you recognize this chap right here. And I thought I got a picture of the ice bucket that they keep the vaccine in. The vaccine is a live virus, so it has to be kept chilled. And so one of the things Rotary does is buy a branded, very small ice chest that they pack with these ice packs like you get for, for icing down wounds and stuff. That's Nancy right there. And Colleen. These ladies back here are the health workers. They are assigned a geographic area within a given city, and it is their responsibility to know who's there, what vaccinations they've had, their state of health. And this lady here was a member of the Chandigarh Rotary Club. She was actually my sponsor. One of the things we do after we do the vaccinations is we color the kids' left pinky purple. What was happening, they found, is that prior to doing that, the parents would either go to another vaccination booth on the same day and get another vaccination, or they'd go get in the back of a long line. And you've probably all seen me with my purple pinky. Okay, how do I unshare?
Click
What about
there's
the
3 dots.
share button?
Stop share.
There you go.
Anyway, I highly recommend it for, when you're not staying with Rotarians, and the Rotarians over there are wonderful, wonderful individuals. You're staying in some really good hotels. The transportation, everything's included. Plenty of opportunity to leave money in some pretty high quality souvenir shops but you get to help stop polio. Now, the reason India, which has been polio free now for 6 years, the reason they still vaccinate is because part of our funding efforts, part of Rotary's funding efforts, is the sampling of sewage in the streets, because that's where the live virus will live. And they're still finding samples of the live virus, so they will continue to vaccinate until that is gone. Let's see, right now in my Rotary career, I've been the club president, I've been an assistant governor, a district governor, and now I'm the Rotary Foundation chair. My hobbies include motorcycling, and that's pretty well my hobby. I've done some dabbling in Rotary on stamps. That can be pretty overwhelming because there are hundreds of countries who have issued stamps with Rotary emblems on them and Paul Harris. And then staying at home with my wife and puppy dog. That's kind of me. I'm a master at GPS. What?
So is Jerry.
G is global, not ground, John.
Be happy to take any questions.
What's your favorite dirt road, John?
There are many around here. When I was doing the recon for this last springs, my GPS did want to take me over a couple dirt roads. I avoided them. The GPS is set for shortest route, and sometimes it's over a dirt road.
John, I have a question for you. What do you think about the new Indians? Because I'm thinking about slowing down, and I'd like to trade my FJ in.
Well, if you want to slow down, you probably want to get a Goldwing or something.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Oh,
But I like the Indian style, you know.
Well, you got the Chief, which has got the classic styling, and then you got some new ones. I'm not sure what they are, which to me, they look a little more like a Harley than they do an Indian. Kind of curved lines and stuff. But you know, I've got an Indian dealer. He's about 30 miles from here, and I go see what they have. You know, I like my Indian. It's comfortable. It's fairly reliable.
I'm kind of excited. I'm kind of excited about it. Changing away from the FJ, because I've ridden that bike for a lot of years, and it's time to go with something a little more cruiser and a little less Mach 10.
Mine is just below cruiser, but it's good for long distances. They have a lot of them that are really tricked out with, you know, the stereo and windshields and all this stuff. You know, it's a lot of add-ons. I think you'd be happy with it.
By the way,
or a year ago, you went on a long trip with yours, and you had a couple days that were really long, like in the 700-800 mile range. What's a day range like on your Indian that you were comfortable with, that you weren't really killing yourself?
Typically, I would say, and yeah, because I like to stop and look and see some of the tourist attractions. So, you know, 400. But that's not a limitation on the bike. That's a limitation on me stopping here, stopping there. On my trip last year, I was going to try and qualify for the Iron Butt, which, as you know, is 1,000 miles in 24 hours. Currently, my personal limit is 637 miles.
Hey, John, you have an inn and a hotel too. You didn't talk about that.
Well, the inn, it's a bed and breakfast with a full-service restaurant. We bought that about 5 years ago. We're the 27th owners. It's been in business since 1757. The old part was built in 1757. The new part was built in 1785. It's got a lot of historical connections. It's just a neat place to own. It's got 6 rooms in it for the bed and breakfast. And then On a busy night, we could probably take care of 100 people in the kitchen. We got an excellent young chef. I just mostly leave him alone. He's like 28, 29, very creative, very proud of his work. And we had, when we had the Gettysburg ride, we had a dinner here at the inn. You guys can speak to whether you like that or not. But yeah, we own that, and we're actually kind of inned out. If somebody were to come along and offer me enough money, it would be theirs.
24/7 job, isn't it?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Okay, Dave, you were saying something?
I said being an inn owner is a 24/7 job in many ways.
It is. Fortunately, I got a couple nice young ladies who take on the late night calls, and nobody stays there. We tell people up front, there's probably not going to be anybody here when you check in unless it's the weekend. But here's how you get in the door, and here's how you get to your room. And if you have problems, here's who you call.
Cool.
So I'm really curious about your area, John. We're really accustomed to sort of smaller, quaint California wine areas. We've always we're Californians, so we've always avoided Napa, and we like smaller areas where we can go wine taste and enjoy sort of, you know, maybe a little bit less haughty experience. What's your area like?
Well, it depends. I kind of go against the grain with the typical winery owner. The typical winery owner, small winery owner, wants to get in, makes the next best dry red wine. I went to a seminar about 15 years ago, and one of the telling things there was that 95% of Americans drink a sweet wine. I can do math. I figured if the other 6,000 wineries wanted to go for the 5% market, more power to them. We make a nice living here selling sweet wines, too sweet for me, but we also make some dry wines. Where I am, we have a real nice hill that faces the southwest, which is perfect growing conditions. The soil is well drained. This year has been a lousy growing year because we've had more than twice as much rain as we normally have. So we've had increased incidence of disease, slower development of the grapes. But we've been here since '76. We're the third owners. We've had it for 20 years. Actually, we've had it for 20 years and 16 days.
Not counting, are you?
No, well, you know, it's easy to count when you start at the 1st of October. There are now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 other wineries or wine shops in the area. There are 3 others that produce their own grapes and wine, and then there are some others who produce it elsewhere and then bring it in here. So we're kind of the on the vanguard here. You know, it's just an interesting business. When we came in, there were 63 wineries in the state of Pennsylvania. Now there's over 250, ranging from mom and pop will make a couple thousand gallons a year to some guys making close to 100,000 gallons.
Sounds like heaven.
Well, we enjoy it. You know, I can walk outside naked anytime because there ain't nobody around. Oh. But you don't get to see that.
You just guaranteed Harold's not coming.
I don't think I can unhear that.
Too late. Too late. Our house is located about the center of our 76-acre property, so we don't really have any neighbors. We've got one real nice neighbor about a quarter mile down the road, and she kind of keeps to herself. And we have, on our property, we've had deer, foxes. When we first got here, we had a couple partridges. You know, all kinds of farmland critters. My favorite being the black snake.
You and snakes.
Yeah, well, I've had a fascination with snakes for most of my life, but I'm scared of them.
Black snakes are great. They eat all your mice. So
Well, they do. Actually, many years ago, my wife didn't live here for the first 7 years of our ownership because she was still on active duty.
Oh.
And I had a habit of going to the grocery shopping on Sunday morning. So I'd go to Perkins, then to the grocery store, then I'd go out to the battlefield. I went to Perkins so often that they had my table set up for me when I walked in the door. But one day I parked in front of the Giant, and there was like 2 other cars in the parking lot. And as I got
John, you're breaking up for me.
Same.
we lost you, John.
I think that's one
John,
of
you're
the
stalled here on our screen.
perks of his property out there, maybe limited bandwidth.
my internet connection is unstable.
You gotta spend a little bit. You gotta spend a little of that big money you're making on your winery there.
John, you said you're unstable?
You gotta spend a little bit of that money you saved by buying that cheap Indian.
You know that fine instrument that makes Harley owners jealous?
Goldwing.
Am I coming through any better?
You heard it, John. He said it. He's a Goldwing owner. Yeah.
Someday people
Even
move up
got
to
it in his
BMW.
Am I coming through any better?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, this black snake leaves my pickup and it heads over to a handicap spot where there's a car parked. And I figured, oh, this is going to be wonderful. Some little old lady's going to come out and get scared by this black snake. I'll go catch it. So I walked over there and I knelt down, and I really did this. There are no witnesses, but I really did this. I leaned down and I said, "Here, snake." And son of a gun, if that thing didn't just kind of slither up right in front of me. Cool, I'm the snake whisperer. Well, I reached down to pick it up, and I must have startled it, and I reached too far back behind the head. It turned around and latched onto my finger. Well, okay, I have the snake has me. I took him over and tossed him into some grass, and I went into the store, and, I'm bleeding a little. There's, just a little snake bite. Washed it off. Then I went to the front desk where there's little high school girls there. "Excuse me, do you have a Band-Aid? I just got bit by a snake in your parking lot." She just reached over and grabbed a Band-Aid, handed it to me. No worries, nobody concerned about liabilities. Just went on and did my shopping. Other questions?
Is that the whole story?
I was gonna say you didn't die or
I
nothing.
got bit by a snake.
A little
A
anticlimactic.
little anticlimactic.
And Giant didn't
Hey
care.
John, how long ago was it that you what year was it or whatever you had polio?
I was 8, so that would have been 56, 57.
And are you susceptible to anything else because of that now, or?
I've had myself checked for post-polio syndrome, and I come out negative. If you've met John Nanny, you see him running around in
Yeah.
a real good guy, but he got it, I think, 2 years before I did and was not vaccinated. He can walk short steps and stand, but he relies on a motorized wheelchair.
Nice guy, actually. Real nice guy.
He is very nice.
And you got it in spite of the fact that you were vaccinated, huh, John? Is that what you're saying?
Back then, there was a series of 3 vaccinations, and I'd had 2 of the 3. So somehow that mitigated the damage.
Actually, a lot of people don't know it, but most of us had, a dead vaccine on the sugar cubes back when we were kids and stuff. And that's not good enough to go on these immunization days, is it, John?
I can't answer that. I went to a doctor, an immunologist, before I went on my first trip, and he said, I got all the shots. I don't know if I got another polio vaccination then or not. They just gave me what I needed.
There's been a couple places I've considered going, and you have to show proof that you've had not just had the vaccination, but a live vaccine.
I carry around my yellow card. Speaking of a trip to India, if you are at all interested, you do need to get updated vaccinations. Plus, you have to have a visa. And there's two kinds of visa. There's a 1-year visa and there's a 10-year visa. And I think they're about the same price. If you decide you want to go, I use a processing company in New York City called Travisa. And you just fill out everything, send them your passport, and it comes back with the visa. I get the 10-year visa.
Travisa's out here in San Francisco too. Good outfit.
Are they?
Yeah.
I think there are one or two other places in the country, but I deal with the one in New York City.
It's important you do it as a tourist visa, not a business visa.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a good point, Chris. And Nancy tells you that. And if you decide to sign up, she gives you all the information.
I've also been on the trip. It's a phenomenal trip.
Have you been with Nancy?
I have.
Yeah, she's something. I know the first time I went, we stayed at a 6-star hotel called a Lalit in Delhi. Way too good for the likes of me, but it was a nice place.
Yeah, when you're staying in the hotels, you are staying in the top end hotels there.
Mm-hmm. And I assume you stayed with some host families when you were there.
When we were in Dhanbad, we did, yeah.
Oh, you went to Dhanbad. Who'd you stay with?
Oh, Ravi. Oh, I can't remember Ravi's last name.
I stayed with the Gadortas, and they still remain friends of mine.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Going back, you said that the CVX was your first decent bike. What did you have before that?
Back in the mid-'60s, Honda started making a foray into the motorcycle market, and the biggest thing you could get was a 305. And my parents went back and forth on it. Finally, they agreed to let me have a Honda 50.
You know what? That's the first thing I ever rode, I think, was a Honda 50.
A Honda 50, and of course, I was part of the gang. None of us had Harleys because that's what motorcycle gangsters have. My friend Bill Drakovich drove up on a 305 once, and we thought he was one bad dude because he had that huge 305. But my buddy Ken and I, we rode around, terrorized the military areas, but not fast.
I heard that the Indians were what the rebels rode and the Harleys was what the good boys rode back in that day.
Can't answer that. Don't know. I know that Indian advertises itself as being the oldest motorcycle name in America because they started, I think, 2 or 3 years before Harley started.
You're absolutely right, though. The Harley people were the good guys, and the Indian people were the rough and readiers in that day. I've read some lore about that. It's very interesting.
Well, I have to look that up because I had not heard that.
Except after World War II, there was such a large surplus of motorcycles. That's where Harley really became famous, and the bad boy image started.
Mm-hmm.
John, do you get any dirt bikes on that property out there?
I don't allow that. I have too many customers coming out here to be concerned about four-wheelers or dirt bikes.
I meant your own.
Oh, no, I don't do dirt bikes. I'm almost 70, and I just can't see going over.
We don't heal.
Actually, I don't think I've ever. I don't think I've ever done a dirt bike. I have nothing against them. They don't appeal to me.
Okay. It's great for learning low traction skills.
I've never been hurt like I've been hurt on a dirt bike.
I almost did a 360 flip on a dirt bike. The almost is what hurt.
Well, speaking of low speed skills, I've been watching this pro rider. and it's a couple motorcycle cops. You can take it live and in person, or they have a series of videotapes of 3 to 5 minutes of various maneuvers, advanced maneuvers. And the one I just saw yesterday, these two guys are doing their low speed maneuvers. One of them does it side saddle, and he's not using his rear brake at all.
Holy
And the
cow.
other guy does it standing on his seat.
Yep.
So makes me think I got to get back out there and practice. Harold, you've probably done that standing on the seat, haven't you?
I have, and almost broke my leg doing it.
That dirt bike sounds safer.
It's all about balance.
Out here, we've got the Alameda County Sheriff's Office does an emergency vehicle operator course. It's a lot like that. They set up the real tight cone patterns.
Mm-hmm.
You go through, you can rent their bike for $50 for the day. They're old KZ1000 beaters.
Mhm.
Cool.
Well, on Jerry's recommendation, I took a police officer course, but this was just one day. Yours was 3 days, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, mine was 3 days that I did, and it was after that that I actually got comfortable scraping the pegs.
Mhm.
But the skills were amazing that I picked up on that. The attitudes of the cops, you could take or leave that. That brought back the old military days. The basic course.
It didn't have anything to do with the fact you were riding a yellow motorcycle, did it?
No, I was riding their motorcycles,
Uh-huh.
I mean, the very first thing you do out when you're in this course is you drop the bike. The
Oh, yeah.
very first thing you do is you drop the bike. Then you get it up, and they teach you how to get it back up and everything else. Then you drop it again the other side.
Wow.
Then you practice dropping the bike for the next hour.
You need to practice that, do you?
Well,
Jerry and Don,
the key is
Yes,
to get
remembering
comfortable
about
with that
Indy,
distance and also picking it back up.
I only practiced that in front of good friends and in front of cameras.
We went on a ride a couple of years ago that Bob put together, Bob Schreiner, and we started in West Virginia. Before I even got on the bike, I had kind of leaned over, and it kept going. The bike kept going, so it was there in front of my new friends.
I remember that incident.
Yeah, me too. So does Bruce. He helped me get it up.
Everybody that has not dropped a bike, put your hand up. And not too many hands.
Oh, has
Yeah, right.
not?
guy. Have not.
No, I have. I've taken at least 3 motorcycle safety. One in Pennsylvania, you get the basic rider course, and you ride there 250. And I thought I was hot stuff after that. And then I took the same course with my own bike. Thought I was hot stuff after that. And then early this year, I took that motorcycle officer course. And now I'm thinking, what am I doing on a bike?
There's one out there I'd like to take. The guy that impressed me years ago in riding was, and he was one of our older riders yet when he was riding, was Bob Gracie. And watching how he can take that bike down to where his knees are maybe an inch off the ground. And there's a course that he told me about, and I've checked on it, and I thought about taking it. And I've actually called and talked to the instructors and stuff like that, and they asked me about what I'm comfortable doing and whatever and all that stuff. And I said something about scraping the pegs. He says, "Yeah, we'll teach you not to do that."
Right.
And man, it's basically it's all about center of gravity. But in their case, they're teaching you about putting your body out instead of the bike out to lower that center of gravity and change that. And they do it interestingly. You do it on that one particular course. You do it on your own bike, and they put you on that bike and they run you through all the maneuvers without the bike ever moving. They have everybody else in the class is all around the bike, and they move the bike as the instructor talks you through turns and things like that. So it's kind of fascinating.
Well, it's always good to improve your skills.
I got another question.
You ever get comfortable at full lock in those police
Sorry?
courses? You ever get comfortable at full lock turning?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Kind of
Well,
work.
I haven't even tried it.
Yeah.
I think that depends on the bike as to how comfortable somebody can get on that. It really depends a lot on the bike.
Somebody
Now, what does that look like?
2-foot tall gyroscope you put on your luggage rack Then it wouldn't make any difference. You'd just be vertical all the time.
There you
Oh,
go.
but it's got a lean to turn.
Right. Bike is a gyroscope on the side.
Hmm.
There is a small electric motorcycle like that that has a gyro in it. It's like those all those scooters, those two-wheel jobbies that people side by sides they run around the parks on and stuff. The cops got them. I can't think segways, but there's a motorcycle like that actually two-wheel motorcycle that'll actually it does the whole gyro stuff that keeps the motorcycle upright. I can't imagine what that'd be like cornering on something like that. So,
BMW has one that they're showing as a modern kind of thing. BMW has one.
And one of the Japanese ones did a video about that just in the last year or so, where the motorcycle with no rider on it is following this guy like a puppy around in his workshop.
I mean, your motorcycle doesn't do that?
Doesn't know.
Well, that was a great talk, John. It was really good to get to know you.
Well, if you guys come to Gettysburg, I'll take you on a tour of the battlefield.
Thank you.
John, I got another question before you quit that I think is pretty important. You were past district governor, what, 2012 is when you became PDG or when you were DG?
15, 16 as DG.
Oh, just recently, 15, 16?
Right.
Why did you become governor? Why did you agree to do that?
Same reason I bought the farm. How hard could it be? But the thing about our district is we have a lot of support from the PDGs. Of course, you got a 3-year training cycle, basically.
Yeah.
And, you know, I first of all, I like to hear myself talk. So the idea of visiting all the clubs appealed to me. And that was interesting because some clubs forgot that it was my day to visit and other clubs put on a big deal. So, you know, a wide range of clubs. It was good to see that, good to see what all the different clubs are doing in our district. You know, I just get more impressed with what's going on in Rotary every day. Probably my proudest accomplishment is getting my sister in Mesa, Arizona to finally join Rotary. And she rejoined just this past year, and she'll be going to Hamburg.
Now you just got to get her to ride a motorcycle.
I don't think that's going to happen.
That's the weirdest thing, John. I've got a sister in Mesa, Arizona, too.
Well, she's actually in just outside of Mesa. It's like the next town down.
Okay, my sister is in Sun Lakes.
I've forgotten the name of my sister's town, but it's just the next town down, and it's all one flat straight road anyway.
Yeah.
Does your sister need to join Rotary?
She does, but she doesn't know it.
Yeah, well, same with my kids. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention them. I have 2 children, 2 adult children. My daughter is 40 and she works for the government in DC, and she will never produce a grandchild. And my son is now 38, and he lives in Fort Collins, Colorado. He's an engineer, and he's still got to meet a girl.
Fort Collins is a great place to go Christmas shopping. No parking meters and lots of twinkling white lights at night.
Yes, there is. It's a nice town. I lived there for about 5 years, and my son grew up there. He grew up with his mother.
Quiet.
I'd be glad to answer any other questions. What I don't know, I make up.
How many years overall were you in Colorado Springs?
I think less than a year. Although, you're probably familiar with the term temporary duty. When I was stationed at Fort Hood, I was with a testing agency, and one of our assignments took us up to Colorado Springs for a year on TDY. That's in itself was an interesting experience. So, you know, probably year and a half at the most. One when I was a child and couldn't tell you anything, and then one as an adult and doing work.
I have a nephew in Colorado Springs, is a ex-military. He was a signal officer, and I don't know whether you would have run into him or not, but he's been in the Springs for quite a while.
Not necessarily, because we were kind of hands off. We were observing the division that did not want to be observed.
You done good, John. Appreciated that.
Well, thank you. I am putting together a ride for next June. I have now, nobody's objected strongly, so I picked 20 to 23 June. Home base will be Athens, Ohio, and we will be doing some or all of the Windy Nine. And it'll be a polio fundraising ride.
Great.
Awesome.
Count me in, John. I might even be able to host some people pre or post if you're so interested. And I live in Mansfield, which is about, 60, 70 miles north of where we'll be otherwise.
Okay. When I went there earlier in the year, actually it's only been 2 months. It was college move-in day, so I wound up staying in Parkersburg, West Virginia.
Parkersburg, West Virginia.
Yeah, a nice town in itself, but I couldn't get a hotel room in Athens. It's a nice town, except for the brick in downtown. And the rides are, I know some of you have been out on some of those. It's beautiful country.
Yeah. Yeah, the triple nickel is really good.
I was on that for a short while, and I have an official photograph at the Triple Nickel Cafe. I think I'm going to give that a stop. It'd be nice to get a good turnout for that. I think Chris says he might be able to make it. I think Bruce, he's not on. Roy and Judy.
I'm going to try. There's the word isn't out yet, but shortly around that time is when there's going to be an opportunity to go spend 2 weeks riding in Mongolia that I'm kind of committed to do too.
Ooh.
That would be fun. I know Bruce.
I'm supposed to know more about that middle of next month. So,
are those all paved roads over there?
90% of them.
No.
The best are GPS shortcuts.
Jerry, is that the Tim Shear ride?
There's 2 other riders.
Yeah, Tim's right.
I know that Bob Schreiner's trying to put together a ride, probably in West Virginia, and I think Bruce Patterson's trying to put a ride together.
Bruce, I think, delayed his till the fall now.
I think so.
Tom, you still up game for sometime next summer?
Well, I'm probably open to do a lot of stuff. I was looking at a 1600 2012 BMW earlier today.
Man. Excellent choice.
And Ron, was it you that was putting something together out in California? You and Larry? Or yeah. No?
Lost his picture.
There it is.
Last picture, not the video. Here, I'll unmute you. No, I can't. There he goes.
Jerry, I think I'd mentioned that I'd be happy to put on another one of those 2, 3, 4 day rides in the Colorado Continental Divide areas.
Yeah.
I think Ron, were you talking about one?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I had one. It was actually in September. So that's Baker City, Oregon.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we can, we can get Tom lined up to do the weekend before yours, and then I can come out and do both.
Well, mine's already over, but we'll have another one.
Okay.
Does your wife remember what you look like, Jerry?
I have a wife? Actually, I got brownie points again today. She was having trouble lining up a flight down to Mexico to go see her beloved butterflies while I'm in Guatemala. And I worked and figured it all out for her. So I'm back on the good side again.
When do you go to Guatemala?
November 3rd. I come back December 11th. Emilio goes with me on November 3rd.
All right.
And he's coming back November 17th, I think. And I'm thrilled about that because there's nothing more scary than carrying a bunch of med supplies in your bags as a tourist, because that's how you carry stuff in on these missions. And you're going through customs wondering what's going to happen. And now I've got Emilio coming with me who speaks the language. That makes life so much better. He's not even going to comment, are you?
The extra money.
He's probably stepped away from the video.
Muted.
But yeah, we're all set to go. I actually think the thing's pretty much fully funded. There he is.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm just telling everybody about you, Emilio.
I heard that. I was just in mute on the full screen. So yeah, hopefully we'll have a smooth transition going through customs once. You know, I don't think they're gonna give us a hard time. If they do, I'm sure we can you know, talk our way out of it.
This is going to be my 5th or 6th time through, and I've had no problems yet. So if I do, I'm going to blame it on you.
Oh. I have 2 passports, an American passport and a Guatemalan passport. So.
Do you know which one you need to get back into the United States?
I know, right? Both of them are blue. So.
Well, if Gary gives you any grief, just whip out that Guatemalan one, and you'll go right through.
Oh, yeah. And I'll say, but yeah, I'm looking forward. You know, it's gonna be. Last time I was in Guatemala was in December 2010.
Oh wow!
So I haven't been in Guatemala in about 8 years. So this is the 8-year mark. I'm going back. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. And
that was
where we going?
That was like 3 presidents ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now
I understand it's about to be 4th.
Yeah, it's about to be 4th because they're going to vote out the comedian. People are not happy with the comedian.
You know, the one before him's still in jail, I understand.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I have a special concern about that because evidently it could be a doppelganger for him.
Yeah. It's all about corruption. They are so corrupt that it's unbelievable. I mean, and unfortunately, I know all about it because I worked when I was going to college in Guatemala, and I work in government, and I saw all the things. So I'm like, well, I'm not surprised these guys went to jail because they have enough proof, enough, you know, people that I saw what's going on. So, but I think, you know, it's getting better. Hopefully, we'll get better. I mean, it's taking presidents in and out to get better. I'm still hopeful. I'm the eternal hopeful for changes in Guatemala.
I think there's good things happening. In fact, I've noticed the difference in how the government's treating us in the 4 years I've been involved, and it's been almost a night and day difference.
Oh, absolutely. Not only that, but they just accredited the airport in Guatemala because they didn't have accreditation for about 5 years. Couldn't pass FAA. That's serious. But now they are back on track, and I guess they're going to expand it again and then try to make it easy to do business. It's all about business, you know, so we'll see. See if that's going to be a good thing for Guatemala. Anyway, I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to it, Jerry. And we'll do a meeting from Guatemala, right, Jerry?
That's the plan. If we
Hopefully,
make, as long as we make that internet work.
that satellite thing.
Are you familiar with this program here, Voces Humanos in Guatemala?
No, no, I'm not familiar with that. I talked to Kia from the foundation, and she said that she was going to email me some of those contacts. So I'm like, okay, where is that one, Scott?
This one is, let's see here. Trying to find the location. It is Guatemala. The guys were talking at our World Community Service meeting last night for the Oakland Club.
Yeah.
Trying to find, I've got their contact information. I can send it along to you if you like.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
Cool.
We'll get people.
I'll get you connected. Guatemala, yeah. Oh. See if I can figure out how to use them. Let's see. I'm going to just type it in the notes here for everyone for simplicity.
When we talked to Kia from the Rotary Foundation, she told me about several individual projects that I was making comments to Jerry about. And then one of them is called Amigos de Guatemala. That is supposedly about 3 hours near where we're going. But where we're going, no one has gone before, just Jerry. That's pretty fun out there.
Let's see, get the organization name here. Okay, so that's the name of the place, and again, I can get you all of his contact information if you like. I'm plugged in with him on LinkedIn now, as of last night.
Oh, okay, fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, great presentation.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
Okay.
I don't think so.
Deathly quiet.
Too quiet.
Must be close to 8 o'clock.
On the dot.
Let's see, it's what, about 2 in the afternoon where you are, isn't it, Linda?
No, it's 5 o'clock. So don't buy a GPS from John.
That's what you got from that paragraph?
You're never going to live that down, right?
Probably
not.
not.
Sorry, John.
I try to think, how would I treat somebody that I was involved in? It's really pathetic because I do the same thing.
I don't think either one of us will live that one down, will we?
Never.
I probably got 2 or 3 other events just like it. So.
All right. Well, if we don't have anything else.
Thanks, John.
You bet.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, John.
Guys, we'll see you next week.
See
Thanks,
you all
John.
next week. Bye-bye.
You want the 4-way test up, Linda?